You ever stay in a house where silence feels louder than shouting? Where the person you once loved doesn't even have to speak to make you feel like a stranger in your own home? That's where my story begins, and where it all fell apart. Stories like this often stay hidden, not because they don't matter but because most people carry them quietly. If you've ever walked away from someone who never saw your worth, this story might echo your own. Share your moment of letting go, or simply drop a comment with where you're tuning in from. Even a small like or share helps this story reach someone who's still searching for the courage to find peace. She wasn't just raising her voice, she was tearing the walls down with it. Her face burned crimson, her hands shaking as if her body couldn't hold the fury inside. "I'd rather die alone," she spat, "than waste another year chained to the life you think is worth bragging about." I didn't answer. Couldn't. It felt like something inside my chest snapped clean in half. So sharp, so sudden, I almost expected to hear it echo in the room. I'm 47. A foreman. My world has always been concrete, dust, steel, and early mornings. Come home, wash the grit from my skin, eat, sleep, repeat. It wasn't glamorous, but it was solid. It was mine. And I liked that. But her? She wanted more. Or maybe just something else. We met by chance in the aisle of a hardware store. She wore a bright red coat and cursed under her breath because she couldn't figure out which joint compound to buy. I thought she was radiant, even with frustration dripping from her voice. When I offered to help, she smirked and said, "You look like someone who actually knows what he's doing." Maybe I should have heard the warning in her tone, that quiet resentment toward the kind of man who was settled. But I didn't. Instead, I fell fast. We both did. Within weeks she was in my home, moving things around, filling empty walls, breathing color into the spaces I'd never thought to decorate. For a while it felt alive. She teased me for being boring, I teased her for being dramatic. Nights ended with her laughter pressed into my shoulder. But those memories are ghosts now, hard to hold when I think of what came after. The shift was subtle at first. She stopped waiting up for me. I'd come home late to her curled on the couch, eyes glued to her phone, dinner pushed aside and cold. Other nights, she stumbled in long after me, perfume and wine clinging to her like another skin. She'd glance at me barely, then lock herself in the bedroom without a word. I tried. God, I tried. Left earlier, came home later. Sat in my truck breathing deep before walking through the door, bracing myself like a man preparing for impact. You ever have to gather strength just to cross your own threshold? One morning, she didn't even bother to look at me. Just stared into her coffee and said, "We can't keep doing this." Doing what? I asked. This? She waved vaguely, like the space between us was a disease. What do you want me to do? Her eyes finally met mine, tired, hollow. Be someone else. And in that moment I knew, no matter what I gave, no matter how much I bent, I'd never be enough. But I stayed. Out of habit, out of hope, maybe out of fear. And every day she grew colder. People think relationships end with one massive fight. Truth is, it's slower than that. Death by 1,000 cuts. A bitter word over breakfast. A shrug in place of affection. Silence is so heavy they press the air out of your lungs. One night stands out. 10 hours pouring concrete in freezing wind, my body screaming for rest. I came home, set my lunch pail down, and she didn't even glance at me. Just sat in the dark with the TV flickering. "You ever realize how small your life is?" she asked, her voice flat. I froze. Small? You come home. Eat the same food. Watch the same shows. You're like a dead man walking, just too stubborn to lie down. My grip on the counter tightened. You think I want this? Coming home to this? Her mouth twisted into something between a smirk and a sneer. Don't pretend. Routine is all you are. And that was it. I wanted to argue, to beg, to make her see that our life had weight, that it meant something. But all I could do was shake my head and disappear into the shower, letting scalding water burn skin that never thawed, the cold sinking deeper inside me. Nights after that, she picked fights just to see if I'd break. I'd sit in silence, fork halfway to my mouth, while she stared at me with that cruel little smile. "You know what's sad?" she'd say. I wouldn't answer. "That you actually believe this," she'd wave at our kitchen, our house, our life, "is worth anything." And I'd whisper back, steady but broken, "It is. It means everything to me." Her eyes told me the truth. That was the problem. You ever live with someone and feel lonelier than when you slept in an empty bed? That's the kind of loneliness that eats you alive, and that's where my story lives. She snapped one night. Her voice cracked through the air like glass shattering. "You're proud of being ordinary," she hissed, like the word itself was poison. And in that moment, I wondered if she was pushing me toward the door, just so she wouldn't have to carry the guilt of walking out first. Maybe she thought if she broke me down, she wouldn't be the bad guy when people started to notice. They did notice though. My brother called late one evening while I sat in my truck, engine off, staring at the porch light I didn't want to walk toward. "You two all right?" he asked. I shut my eyes. Silence was my only answer. "You need a place to stay?" he offered. "Not yet." He didn't push, just said, "Call me before it gets worse." At work, Mick, sweat dripping down his neck, hands raw from steel, looked over while we loaded rebar. "You look like hell, man." "Appreciate it," I tried to joke. "You want to talk?" "No." He just clapped my shoulder before walking off. And that small, wordless gesture stayed with me longer than any of her speeches ever did. One night she came home late. I was in the kitchen, radio humming low, spoon in hand over reheated stew. She flicked on the light and blinked like she hadn't expected me to still exist. "You waiting up?" she asked. "No. Just eating." She looked me over and smirked. "You look pathetic. Sitting here alone." This time something inside me finally flared. I pushed back my chair with scraping against tile. "Then don't look at me," I snapped. Her eyebrows arched, almost amused. "Finally growing a backbone? Maybe. Or maybe I'm just done pretending you're better than me." She stared for a beat too long, then turned and walked away. No words, no fight. Just footsteps fading down the hall. And for once, I didn't follow. Didn't apologize. Didn't even feel guilty. I sat back down and finished my meal. After that, I started sleeping on the couch more often. Sometimes she'd glance at me in the mornings with something like pity. Other times, her eyes slid past me as if I wasn't even there. You ever share a roof with someone and feel more invisible than when you lived by yourself? About a month before the end, her friend Lena called. She'd never called me before. It was late and I almost let it ring. "I know this is awkward," Lena said softly, "but I can't sit back and watch anymore." "Watch what?" I asked. "The way she talks about you. The way she trailed off, picking her words. "She's not fair to you. You deserve better." I rubbed my hand down my face. "That's not my life." "Maybe it should be," she whispered. When the call ended, I just sat there, staring at the phone like it weighed 100 pounds. It was the first time anyone had spoken out loud the thought that had been eating me alive. And still I stayed. Because that's the curse of hope. It clings long after it should have died. The nights blurred together. I started working later just so maybe she'd already be asleep when I walked in. But most evenings she wasn't in bed. She sat in the dark living room, phone screen lighting her face, looking for all the world like she was waiting for someone better to text her back. One night, I came in with mud crusted on my boots. She didn't look up, just muttered, "Where were you?" "Working." She scoffed, still tapping her phone. "That's all you ever do. Or, like it makes you worth something." I set my lunchbox down slowly. "It puts a roof over your head." That got her attention. She finally looked up, eyes sharp and cold. "You think that's enough? You think I should be grateful you can swing a hammer and pay bills?" "I think you used to be," I said, quieter than I meant. Her jaw clenched. Maybe I was just young and stupid. I didn't answer. There weren't words left to cover ground we'd argued across 100 times. So I walked to the shower, hands trembling from more than exhaustion. After that, her excuses dried up. She didn't bother explaining anymore. She just went out. I'd come home to an empty driveway, empty kitchen, empty house. Eat whatever scraps I found, wash my plate, sit in silence that was heavier than concrete. You ever sit in your own kitchen and feel like a guest? That's when my brother called again. "You good?" he asked, voice low. "Yeah." But even I didn't believe the word. "You sure? You don't have to play tough with me." I swallowed hard. She's not happy. And I don't think I can make her any more." His voice stayed quiet. "You think she even wants you to try?" I didn't answer. Because we both already knew the truth. You ever wake up one day and realize the person lying next to you doesn't love you? She just enjoys watching you drown? That's when I knew it was over. "My door's always open," my brother had told me. "Whenever you're ready to be done." A few nights later, she came in late. Hair damp from the drizzle, heels dangling from her hand. I was at the table, bills and receipts scattered like a losing hand of cards. She stood there, eyes sharp, lips curled. "You look pathetic," she said. I lifted my head. "Appreciate that." She crossed her arms. "This is it? Your life? Killing yourself at work just to come home to moldy walls and leftover stew." "I call it honest," I replied. She scoffed like honesty was dirt under her shoe. Her phone buzzed, and when she glanced at the screen, a smile flickered across her face, small, secret. Then she walked past me, leaving me with the rain tapping the windows. That night I almost packed a bag. Almost. Instead, I slept on the couch again, convincing myself I stayed because I loved her. The truth? I stayed because I didn't know what else to do. The next morning, while unloading lumber, my phone buzzed. It was Lena. I ignored it until break, then sat on the tailgate and called back. "I'm sorry if this crosses a line," she said. "Just say it." Her breath shook. "She talks about you like you're nothing. Like you're a dead weight she's stuck with. She laughs about you behind your back. Says you're too simple to ever leave." Something dropped in my stomach, not pain, not anger. Just cold certainty. "Thanks for telling me," I said. "You deserve better," she whispered. I hung up and stared at sawdust swirling in the wind, realizing I already knew. I'd just been too stubborn to admit it. That night when she came home, I didn't ask where she'd been. Didn't even look up. And for the first time she looked uneasy. Like she realized I wasn't playing my part anymore. The next morning my brother showed up without warning. He glanced around the dim kitchen and muttered, "Jesus. This place feels like a tomb." "Yeah." He sat across from me. "You ready?" I traced the scratches in the table. "Almost." "You don't have to give her another inch," he said firmly. "This house. You built it. You broke your back for it. Don't let her take one more thing." Something clicked inside me. I nodded. "I know." That night when she walked in, she found me sitting in the living room. A small suitcase sat by my feet. "What's this?" she asked. "Options," I said. "For you." Her eyebrows shot up. "You think you're kicking me out?" "I don't think." "I know." She laughed. "You won't. You don't have the guts." I stood slowly, meeting her eyes. "Watch me." For once she didn't have a comeback. I didn't do it that night. Didn't shove papers at her, didn't demand she leave. Part of me thought I owed the years between us some last chance at redemption. But she gave me nothing. Just moved through the house like I was something stuck to her shoe. The next morning I sat in the kitchen with coffee before dawn, waiting. I could hear her in the bedroom, hurried, restless, like she was late for something more important than me. When she finally walked in, keys in hand, I stopped her. "We need to talk," I said. "I don't have time." "Make time." Her eyes snapped to mine. "What?" "Sit down." She hesitated, then dropped her purse and pulled out a chair. Her expression was already bored. "Fine. Say it." I took a slow breath. "You're not happy." "I'm not blind." She rolled her eyes. "Here we go. And I'm not happy either. You hate the life we built. You hate me for not being someone else. And I hate what this has turned into." She crossed her arms. "So what? You finally grew a spine." "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just done living with someone who despises me." Her mouth twisted. "Don't play the victim." "I'm not. I'm the fool who believed if I worked hard enough, you'd remember why you picked me." Her face tightened. "I didn't pick you. I settled for you." I stared straight at her. "Then go find what you think you deserve." She blinked like she hadn't expected me to call her bluff. "You're really throwing me out?" "I'm not asking. I'm telling." I slid a folded paper across the table, a hotel reservation. Paid up for a month. After that, she was on her own. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. "You're pathetic," she whispered. "Maybe. But I'm done being your punching bag." Her eyes glistened, but no tears fell. She just grabbed her purse, walked out, and slammed the door behind her. When the silence settled, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. You ever carry a weight so long, your body forgets how it feels to finally stand up straight? You ever stay so long in a broken love that by the time you finally walk away, it feels less like heartbreak and more like taking your first real breath? That afternoon, my brother showed up again. He stepped inside without waiting, eyes scanning the silent house. "You do it?" he asked. "Yeah." He nodded once. No smile, no cheer. Just understanding. We sat in the living room, not talking. Two men who knew that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit it's over. Before he left, he squeezed my shoulder. "I'm proud of you." I didn't reply, but something inside me finally unclenched. 2 days later, Lena called. I ignored it. She called again. Finally, I answered. "Hey," she said softly. "I heard," I replied. "You okay?" "Getting there." She hesitated. "I'm sorry. I probably crossed a line before." "No," I said. "You told me what I needed to hear." Her exhale was shaky, relieved. "If you ever want to talk, or just not sit alone." "Maybe," I cut in. "Thanks." We hung up and I just sat there staring at the phone. You ever feel like you've been underwater so long you almost forget what air tastes like? That's what it felt like. That night I packed the rest of her things into boxes. No anger. No smashing or tearing. Just folding sweaters, stacking towels, packing away the last scraps of her life in my house. I lined the boxes by the door, cracked a beer, and sat on the floor watching moonlight spill across the carpet. It didn't feel like victory. Didn't feel like loss either. Just an ending. The next morning her sister came to collect the boxes. She barely spoke, but before leaving she paused at the door. "You didn't deserve this," she said softly. I shrugged. "Maybe I did, for staying this long." She shook her head. "No. You were steady." She was restless. I didn't argue. There was nothing left to say. I just watched her car disappear down the road. That evening I finally called Lena back. "You free?" I asked. "Yeah. You want to talk? Maybe at your place?" "I'd like that." I didn't know what it meant or if it meant anything at all. But when she opened her door and I felt warmth spill out instead of cold silence, I realized I hadn't felt that in years. Her house was small, lived in. The smell of garlic and onions drifted from the kitchen. She pointed to the couch. "Sit. I'll grab you a drink." I eased down, shoulders stiff. There were books stacked on the table, family photos lined on a shelf, a blanket draped carelessly over the armrest. It felt like home, and that cut me deeper than anything. She handed me a beer without comment, just a look that said she wasn't going to make me explain myself. "You don't have to talk," she said gently. "But if you want to, I'll listen." I took a sip, felt my chest loosen. "I don't even know where to start." "Try the middle." I gave a tired laugh. "The middle's the worst part. That's when I still believed it could get better." She nodded. "That's always the worst part." I looked at her. "You knew, didn't you?" "Most people did," she admitted. She wasn't quiet about how she felt. I told her more than once she was being cruel. I thought it would sting to hear, but instead I just felt lighter. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For not pretending." Her eyes softened. "You were a good husband. You tried harder than anyone could have asked." She didn't want saving. I couldn't speak, so I just nodded. "You know," she said quietly, almost to herself, "it's okay to admit you're relieved." I looked down at my hands. "I am. I'm tired of being the only one who cared." We sat like that, not needing to fill the silence. Later, when I left, she walked me to the door. "If you need anything, you know where I am." I met her eyes. "I might take you up on that." She smiled, small real. "I hope you do." I sat in my truck a long time after, thinking about all the nights I'd parked in my own driveway, dreading the walk inside. Tonight, for the first time, I didn't feel that weight. The next day I told my brother it was done. "You sure?" he asked. "I'm sure." "Good. You already look better." "Do I?" "Yeah. Like you finally set down a burden you've been dragging for years." That weekend I scrubbed the house top to bottom. Tossed out her half-empty bottles, her chipped mugs, all the little anchors that kept her ghost alive in those walls. I boxed up the rest and shoved it in the garage. When it was done, I stood in the doorway, breathing in the emptiness. For the first time it felt like mine again. You ever clear a space and realize it wasn't just clutter weighing you down? It was the life you were trying so hard to hold together? That evening Lena texted, "How's the house?" I typed back, "Quieter." Her reply came fast, "That's not always a bad thing." And for once, the quiet didn't feel heavy. It felt honest. What if I told you losing someone who betrayed you doesn't feel like a loss at all, but like finally stepping into peace? That's what this story is about, and if you've ever carried dead weight in the name of love, you'll want to hear this through to the end. It didn't feel like defeat. It felt like breathing again after being underwater too long. 2 nights later, I asked Lena if she wanted to grab dinner. She didn't hesitate, just said yes like she'd been waiting for me to ask. We met at this old diner outside of town. Nothing fancy, greasy food, coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and pie that tasted like it was baked in someone's grandmother's kitchen. When I walked in, she was already in a booth, smiling like she'd saved me a seat in her life. "You look better," she said. "So do you," I replied. She grinned. "That's because I don't have to listen to her anymore." I shook my head, chuckling. "You always told her the truth." "She never wanted it." "No," Lena said. "She wanted someone to agree she was always right. Guess she married the wrong man for that." We laughed, really laughed, and for a moment it felt easy again. Dinner wasn't a date, not officially. We didn't talk about what came next, didn't make promises. We just shared food, sipped coffee, and remembered what it was like to sit across from someone without being judged. When the bill came, I reached for it, but she stopped me, resting her hand over mine. "Let me," she said. Just this once, I countered. She looked at me steady and I let go. Walking out into the night, she slipped her hand through my arm. This doesn't have to mean anything, she whispered. I know, I said. But it did. Maybe not everything, but it was the first step toward something I hadn't dared hope for. When I got home, the house felt different. Not heavy. Not hollow. Just mine. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and stood in the silence. You ever step out of a storm and suddenly realize the sky's clear? That's what it felt like. Weeks passed. The air grew colder, the mornings darker. Every day I woke up to a quiet house, and every day I realized that wasn't a bad thing. I started fixing little things I'd ignored too long. Repaired the cabinets. Sealed the cracks. Organized the garage. Every repair felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Like telling the house, you belong to me again. One morning I was loading wood into my truck when my brother pulled up. You busy? He asked. Always, I said, but it's the good kind. He looked around, nodded. Place feels lighter without her stuff everywhere. Yeah, I admitted. Feels better too. You think you'll see her again? Maybe. But I don't owe her anything anymore. He smiled, clapped my shoulder. That's how you know you're moving on. Nights grew calmer. I'd sit in the living room with just a lamp on, thinking about everything, how hard I tried, how little it mattered. But the anger was gone. The sorrow too. What I felt was clean. A few days later, Lena texted, "Dinner again?" This time I didn't hesitate. We sat in the same diner, laughing at nothing, talking about everything. At one point, she set down her coffee, her eyes locking onto mine. She was never going to see you for who you are, she said softly. I know. But I did. That hit harder than I expected. Not because it hurt, but because it was true. Weeks later, I heard from her sister. She's telling people you were impossible to live with. I read it, smiled faintly, and typed back, let her talk. I'm done. And I was. Most nights I'd come home, flip on the porch light, and just stand there, feeling the stillness. No more fights. No more pretending. No more wondering if love was supposed to feel like walking on glass. Then one evening Lena stopped by. I was in the garage sorting tools. She looked around and teased, "This place looks like your brain." That a compliment? Yeah, it is. We ended up at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, talking about small things, the kind of things you miss when life has been one big storm. At some point, she reached across and placed her hand over mine. You look lighter, she said. I feel lighter, I admitted. We didn't kiss. We didn't talk about the future. But when she left, the house didn't feel so empty anymore. You ever think about how long you stay somewhere you never really belonged? About how much strength it takes to finally walk away? I don't regret staying. It taught me what I could survive. But leaving? That taught me what I deserved. Now, when I drive past the hardware store where it all began, I don't feel bitterness. Just a memory, nothing more. Because here's the truth, you don't need a brand new start to be free. You just need the courage to put down what isn't yours to carry. And when you finally do, the silence that follows. It isn't lonely. It's peace.